Hey guys, welcome to a very exciting game that has already been played in Kolkata of India, and the tournament is Tata Steel Rapid and Blitz tournament of 2019, and we have a winner of this tournament, but I'm not going to tell you until I show you the pictures. So here are some of the pictures, and again these are not taken by me, all of them belong to the Tata Steel Rapid and Blitz tournament guys, and congratulations to all the photography team for taking wonderful pictures. Thank you so much. I'm sure all the viewers also appreciate all the pictures. So an interesting picture here, and I have a lot of pictures. So Wesley Slow here is nicely drinking some tea or coffee, and probably tea because we have a lot of tea in India, although there are quite a few coffee drinkers as well. And this is a photo. Look at this young kid looking at Ding Liren, and he's like, "What are you doing? It should be the other way around. I should be the one taking the picture." But Ding is a pretty simple guy, so he's just taking some of the pictures. And look at this kid here. She is so excited to see all of these guys. Her smile is just amazing. Then we have Nakamura, who is smiling and probably having some fun. And in the background we can see Ding Liren, and I think this is Hare Krishna Pentala that he's playing against. They are pretty intensely involved in the game. And you have few players. If you look closely, if you see this this phone here, these guys are reviewing the game again. So on the field and off the field also, they keep reviewing the chess, which is pretty amazing. Here you have still from Vishy's game against one of the opponents where he had the black pieces. And here again players are watching probably some game or some variation of the game. Here you have an amazing photo of Anish Giri, probably just waiting for the game to start. He's probably bored and is like, oh, when are they going to start the games? And here's finally the photo of Magnus Carlsen, who is the winner of Tata Steel Rapid and Blitz tournament of 2019. So congratulations to him, and I'm going to show you an amazing game played between Magnus Carlsen and Vishwanathan Anand. And Anand was pretty amazing in the game until the last very final few seconds of the game, I should say, because both the players made a lot of blunders, but it was quite interesting. So I'm just going to show it to you. We have Magnus, who has the white pieces, and Vishwanathan Anand has the black pieces. Magnus opens with d4, and we have knight to f6. Pretty standard opening that that Vishy chooses. It's the Indian game for now. We have knight to f3, and now d5. The queen's pawn opening. This is the symmetrical variation. And now bishop to f4, so this is the London system. And we have e6. Anand is simply continuing with the plan. We have e3, and now bishop to d6. Again, nicely putting some pressure on this diagonal, asking for some exchanges early on of the dark square bishop. We have knight b to d2, and simply bishop takes f4, e takes f4, and queen to d6. And this is not a bad position. The queen is immediately attacking the pawn, so you play g3, simply defending the pawn. And now you have a nice majority here, which is why all of the pieces are on the dark square, and it's fine to not have a dark square bishop in this particular variation. You have b6. Vishy now wants to create a nice he wants to create a nice monstrous bishop on this light square diagonal. And you have c3. We have castles by black, that is Vishy, and bishop to d3. And these are all pretty standard moves, so I'm just going to run through them. We have bishop to a6, attacking the light square bishop, and now bishop takes a6, knight takes a6. So pretty early in the game, you will see that both the bishops are off the board from both the sides. So it's a bishopless game, and it's going to be a fight with the four knights. You have queen to e2, knight to b8, going back with the knight because the knight wants to remaneuver itself. You have knight to e5, and this is already a novelty in this position, as this position has never been reached before. So a completely new game for both players. And you have c5, pushing the pawn immediately forward, trying to open up the centers. And you have knight d to f3, putting some nice support to this knight, and now knight to e4. Black does the same thing. He wants to amazingly get the second knight over to this position and have a wonderful control. You have castles by white, which is Carlsen, and f6, trying to attack this knight. Now knight to g4, simply retreating, and now knight to c6, not really going for this plan since you have put the pawn here, but going for this plan. And this nice knight nicely is keeping an eye on this pawn, the d4 pawn, and in the next move it immediately wants to capture this pawn. So d takes c5, and Carlsen here wants to create some weaknesses in the center. So he's like, okay, fine, if you don't open up the lines, I'm going to open the lines. You have b takes c5, and now rook a to d1. And this is a nice pawn chain that Vishy has, and Magnus has a little bit of issues and problems in this position. You have f5, immediately trying to create some more pressure and pushing these minor pieces deeper into the king's position. So Vishy is playing pretty aggressive chess here. You have knight g to a5, and now rook a to b8. Nicely controlling, also attacking this backward b pawn. c4, and now knight takes e5. And you have knight takes e5, not really taking with the pawn because that would completely close down the position, and it would be advantage, of course it would be advantage black. So you have rook f to d8, and now rook f to e1. You have queen to a6, and this is a nice idea. Now you are attacking the queen side, and because the king side is nicely guarded by both the players, there is not much happening. So Anand wants to now start attacking the queen side. You have f3, and now knight to f6, b3, and now finally rook b to c8. Now since this pawn is nicely defended, you don't really need the rook, so now rook is defending this pawn. You have rook to c1, and now d4, pushing this pawn even further. You have knight to d3, and here white is now slightly better, mainly because it has created some nice outposts for the knight, even though the knight just retreated. And you have rook to d6, rook to c2. He wants to just double up the rooks whenever possible, also putting the rook on a nice defending file. So now you can move the queen. And you have knight to d7, mainly to keep the control of the square. Queen to g2, and now queen to b6. You simply have rook c to e2, putting some more pressure against this pawn, but you don't really have to worry since you are defending it twice. And now immediately Anand wants to strike on the queen side, so a5, a pretty interesting move. The next move is coming. This pawn is going to be pushed forward. Rook to b2, making sure that if the pawn is pushed, either you will capture and then you expose the queen, or not allow this pawn to be pushed. So basically that's the idea. You have rook to b8, and now queen to d2, queen to c7, getting out of the way, and queen to d1. And finally, not pushing this pawn, which should have been played, but h6. And this is a slight mistake from Anand because he should have played a4. That was the whole idea of pushing this a pawn to a5. Which is, so it's puzzling why he didn't really play this, because after this what you will get is rook b to e2, then you will have a takes b3, a takes b3, and simply queen to b6. And this will be a completely fine position for both players to play, with a slight advantage for white. But nonetheless, it's not really a big advantage, and Anand can definitely push for something better here. But he plays h6, and now rook b to e2. So a lot of rook moves. You have queen to b6, and now h4. You have a4, finally pushing the pawn further. rook to b2. You have a takes b3, a takes b3, and now queen to a7, getting out of the way. You have king to h2, and now rook to a6. A lot of rook moves. Finally the rook wants to come here, and since black nicely controls the open file, but again this is position 36 and it's a completely equal game. These two guys are pretty amazing. I mean, if you look at the pawn structure, all of these pieces are defended. No, not even a single piece is left undefended by both the players, and even this rook is nicely defending this pawn. This rook is nicely defended by this pawn. This queen is nicely defending the pawn. Queen is defending the rook. Queen is also defending the knight and also defending the rook. So pretty similar position. This rook is nicely defended by the knight. You have a queen defending the rook and this rook as well. So you also have the king nicely defending this pawn. And this is a pretty amazing position, and that's exactly how all the grandmasters play. They defend all of their pieces while making progress, and it is pretty crazy because now this is a threat, but there are two pieces attacking this g5 square. So Anand doesn't really have much of ideas on what to do next. But you have queen to e2, and now rook a to b6, again trying to go after this pawn. You have g4, and finally there is some counterplay going on on the king side, because there was nothing really happening on the queen side. So Carlsen decides, let's just go for it. Anyways, I have f pawn. I'm just going to get f captures here, and then nicely have three pawns. I don't really have to worry, which is why he pushed g4. You have f takes g4, f takes g4, so he undoubled his pawn, and now queen to c7. And here after this, both the players are really low on time, so they don't really have much of an option to calculate everything precisely. So it's just, okay, whatever the first best move that I see, I'm going to play, because they are just playing on they are pretty low on time and they have really few seconds on the clock. And you get g5. Carlsen wants to create some mess here because the king is completely open. All of these pieces are on the queen side. So Carlsen thinks, okay, maybe if I try to create some chaos, Anand will make some mistake. We have h takes g5. H takes g5. You had to take with this h pawn because your pawn is currently pinned. And now you have e5. Finally Anand decides to push the backward pawn, a little too late in the game, and this is a slight advantage for white. But with the few seconds on the clock, the slight advantage is not really enough. You have f takes e5, and now rook to e6. You are attacking this pawn 3 times, and it's also defended 3 times. So you have to attack it one more time, and only then can you capture it. And you have queen to e4. Magnus wants to put some pressure on the pawn, and that's why he wants to get the queen. He again wants to have this. If Anand moves the rook, he's going to move the rook and nicely defend this pawn. So he's not going to let go. You have rook b to e8, and Anand does exactly that. And now queen to d5 doesn't really bother defending this pawn. Now you have knight to b6, and by this you are attacking this pawn twice. So you had to keep your knight here, but Anand decides to move the knight in order to get some counterplay. You have queen takes c5, and now Anand decides not to exchange the queens, which actually was the correct move because that equalizes the position slightly. You have queen to d8 by Anand, declining the queen trade, also keeping an eye on this knight. Again, this is complete advantage white, but Carlsen doesn't know that because he doesn't have a computer when he's playing these games. You have rook to g2, rook to f8, and queen to b5. And now you have rook to f3. And this is a crazy position because this is actually a complete mistake from Vishwanathan. What he should have played instead was rook to f5, and this was pretty amazing, mainly because now g6 has to be played, and you simply get queen to h4 with a check. King to g1, rook to g5, rook to e2. You have rook e takes g6, and now you are double attacking this king. Queen to e8 with a check, only move king to h7, queen to f7, and now rook to h6. You have knight to f4 and simply d3. And what are you going to do about this d pawn? You have to play rook takes g5, queen takes g5 with a check, and you have rook to g2. Now defending the check and also getting out of harm's way. You have queen takes e5, you finally eliminated this pawn, and now even you can play this rook all the way here to g6, and you try to get these rooks off the board, but this is complete advantage Vishwanathan Anand. But he missed this, and of course it's impossible to calculate everything in few seconds. So he just played rook to f3. It was pure intuition and he immediately played it. And to that was responded by knight to c5, which is again a mistake. Now you are attacking this rook. And that is the first thing you see when somebody attacks your pieces. That's the first thing you see, and then you try to move that piece. So rook to g6 was played, moving the piece away from the threat. But this is again a mistake, and the correct move that should have been played was, okay, if you guys want to pause the video and try to find it, please go ahead, do so. It's really difficult to find. Rook to h6 with a check. And you might think this is crazy because this pawn will be captured, and if that happens, then here is what you get. You simply get queen to h4 with a check. You have king to g1. That's the only alternative. Queen takes e1 with a check. King to h2, and now queen takes e5, and there is checkmate in 4 moves for Vishwanathan Anand, so that you cannot really stop it. So if you guys have some time, pause the video and try to find the checkmate in 4 moves. It starts with, you have to first get out of the check, and you have 2 alternatives, either g1 or h1. The best one is to play g1, so king to g1. Then you have queen to e3 with a check, king to h1, rook to h3 with a check, rook to h2, defending, queen to e1 with a check, and now finally after king to g2 you have rook to g3, and this is checkmate. But this was not played in the game. After rook to g6 was played and not rook to h6, because they had like 2 seconds on the clock. You're not going to be able to calculate all of this. And you have e6. Magnus is trying to push and create some more pressure. Again, this is a mistake. And now what has to be played is simply rook captures here, and Anand will be completely winning. But instead he plays queen to d6 with a check, just trying to get some 1 or 2 seconds of increment on his clock and trying to play faster. But then king to g1 was played, which was the correct move. And now rook takes g5, a little late, and finally knight to e4 was played, and this was the final position on the board as Vishy realized that he cannot really continue attacking. Vishwanathan Anand resigned the game, and Magnus Carlsen won a pretty amazing game, that pretty attacking chess by both sides, and Magnus ended up winning the game. So I'm going to show you why Vishwanathan Anand decided to resign the game, and mainly because if he plays rook takes g2, it simply runs into king takes g2. You have queen to f8. Now you have to defend this rook, and you simply get e7, and there is nothing you can do to defend this pawn from queening. So you bring a second queen into the game, or you give up your queen, and this is completely winning for Magnus. Or if you go back to this position and you, instead of playing rook takes g2, you instead play rook takes b5, then this is even worse, because now you simply get knight takes d6, rook b takes b3, and now e7. And again, there is nothing you can do to stop this pawn from becoming a queen, and you simply have to play rook b to e3. You have to you can bring a queen into the game with a check. rook takes e8, and simply rook takes e8 with a check, king to h7, and now rook to e7. You are going after this pawn. Eventually you will gobble up this pawn as well, and with a whole rook up, this is completely winning. Which is why Vishy Anand in this position on move 51 resigned, and Magnus won this amazing tournament by 4 whole points, and this is pretty crazy because this has never happened before. And I'm going to show you a wonderful stat by Mr. Turjay Svensson, who says that best scores in Grand Chess Tour Blitz or Rapids is Magnus Carlsen, because and look at the first three, it's all three is Magnus. 2019 he has in Kolkata he has 27 points. 2019 Abidjan he has 26.5 points. He has back in 2017 he had 25.5 points. And this is pretty amazing. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. First 7 the top scorers, Magnus Carlsen has his name 5 times. Shows you how amazing chess he is playing. And he even in the post tournament interview, he said that yes, he is playing some pretty amazing chess and might be a little better than others. So he is at his peak right now. Pretty amazing player. So that's it from this video. I'm sorry it was a little long, but this game was pretty amazing, so I had to show everything possible, a lot of variations in it as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments or concerns, please let me know in the comment section below. I thank all my subscribers for supporting me and subscribing to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. That's all from me for today. Namaste. See you next time.